documented the entire content creation journey. He started his journey with YouTube. This guy is mentor. He's a content creator. He's a game developer and plays so many other roles as well. He's none other than Jason Weimann. Gamification has become a buzzword across multiple spheres of life. Nevertheless, its meaning is unclear to many of us. In this meeting, I'm going to ask you a few questions about gamification will be helpful in education. So my first question to you is, what is your view about gamification in learning?
Well, first, I just want to say thanks for thinking of me and interviewing me for this. It's an honor and it'd be really fun. So gamification in learning in general, I mean, it's just kind of a big topic, but it's something that a lot of my friends focus on for doing, I guess, a variety of things, mostly for business education and stuff, teaching people how to get jobs done effectively and efficiently, really, I guess, cheaply as well. So like, I think that overall long-term gamification is going to come down to a couple things. I think there's this loose idea where people just want to copy and rip off a bunch of game ideas and put them into a business workflow where it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, where they're just kind of trying to map things over one-to-one. But there are some areas where it, where I think it maps really well and can speed up the training. Things, especially when it comes to training on systems where the training to use that system or to build that system is extremely complicated or expensive, requires a lot of setup, or is dangerous. I know a lot of people personally in this area around Southern California that are using game systems, VR headsets, and then also implementing game ideas and theories and kind of gameplay systems into training systems that are used for surgeries, for monitoring, or I guess not necessarily monitoring, but evaluating people's results back from tests and other things. And they're also using them for just treating people that have issues, that have health issues, that muscular problems, brain problems, and other things to, I guess, help them along the way. And I know I've been talking a little rambly a bit about it, but one other thing that I found that people are using it for a lot is just it's super high-end training on expensive hardware. So they've got people that are working on devices that cost many millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they want to bring in new people and train them, but the cost to hire somebody is extremely expensive because the average person breaks $500,000 in hardware or something. So they have huge cost, and they're able to, and starting to shrink that down just by turning these into virtual video games where they're training people to do the jobs. And I don't know that I can talk too much about this because I think they're kind of NDA, but they're big industries and big companies that are doing them. So
Yeah. So my second question is, what do you think about educational games developed in virtual worlds like Open Simulator?
So for educational games, I looked a little bit at the Open Simulator. I didn't know too much about it, but I think that in general, educational games are a huge boost for kids, and not just kids, but like kids and adults. If you can play games that actually teach you things, it helps a lot. What I found though is that most of the time, even educational games, the ones that are supposed to be educational, aren't so much focused on the education, and they tend to be focused where a lot of games go, which is to monetization instead. So having games where they actually focus heavily on the teaching part really helps a lot. I found a couple that I use with my toddlers and my other kids along the way that have been really helpful to teach them things, but it's one of those situations where it's kind of difficult to find the right things that are actually educational and that aren't just, driven by the corporate need to upsell and increase monetization. The other thing that I think though with games and education is that some of the games that aren't necessarily designed to be educational, but allow players to do things where they're learning, are some of the best. Things like Roblox, where you can get in there and start customizing, building it, and coding and thinking logically and kind of putting together these logical puzzles. It's good experience and practice in just combining logical things together, seeing the cause and effect, go together and being able to control it. But also it can lead into programming, software development, engineering, and all kinds of other things, just as a side effect. Minecraft is kind of the same way, an even more approachable version.
Yeah, Minecraft has a education pack, like we can play it. So here's a surprise for you. I want to play a fun game with you around video games. So are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. So my first question to you is, what's your favorite game all the time?
My favorite game of all time. Oh, that's kind of tough. There were two. So Command and Conquer Zero Hour, General Zero Hour is an old RTS that I've played many thousands of games in, and I really loved it. I'm still waiting for something to come out that's similar to it. There have been a couple times where they tried and then they just keep canceling the projects. They get there and then it turns into some weird monetization thing and then they cancel the projects. Outside of that, the other one would have had to been EverQuest. So EverQuest 1, which I played way more than I ever should. I played many years worth of time just playing that from probably from about 12th grade up until, I don't know, until I had to stop. But I played that nonstop. But it also kind of led me into the game industry, playing a lot of these games and then meeting the people, especially meeting the other people that were playing the games and into them, led me into the game industry, which was, I think, a big boom. So I'm happy about it. Yeah, those are my favorites.
Okay, so my quiz number 2. What was the first game you ever remember playing? First ever.
I think it would have been it was probably Pitfall on an old Amiga, although I think I played something else before that. I just can't remember the name of it. I played the really old one where you run around and jump and try not to get eaten by crocodiles. And then I actually got the Game Maker Studio and started making my own version of that when I was 9 or 10. I mean, it was terrible and it came with the template, so I was really just moving shit around and breaking things, but I had a blast with it.
Mine was Mario.
Oh!
Yeah.
That's definitely good. The first Mario, Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah. First one.
Yeah, that's the first one I remember playing in an arcade. I remember we played it on a vacation somewhere. We went on a vacation and they had it in the hotel lobby and it was the coolest thing. All I wanted to do, everybody else was at the beach and I just wanted to go to the hotel lobby and play Mario Brothers.
Yeah. So my third question is, what food was the character Pac-Man modeled after? If you
I assume a pizza.
Yeah.
I just look down at the table that's our character.
Yeah. So, question number 4. Mario first appeared in what video game?
It first upgraded?
No, just a little bit.
Appeared? Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Correct.
I remember that one too. I don't remember playing it before I played Mario Brothers though, or Super Mario.
Yeah. So my last quiz is, what is the most expensive video game made to date?
I don't know. Probably Star Citizen. I'm not sure. I don't know what their budget's at. I think they are at a couple $100 million so far. I don't know if anybody's broken that.
GTA 5.
Oh, is it GTA 5? What was their budget?
I think 250 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And they made it up to 1 billion total.
Oh, okay. So they're not even close to catching up to Fortnite? Just doing that a month?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll move forward to the gamification questions. So everyone is talking about next big thing, Metaverse. So what is the Metaverse? What is the role of VR and AR in the Metaverse?
That is a huge question, and I'll just give my opinion. It's obviously probably going to be very different from other people's, and it'll probably be wrong because every time I think about tech stuff, I tend to be wrong. But from what I gather, when people are talking about the metaverse, they generally are talking about some sort of, I think, at least currently, a very unrealistic idea of this giant networked world where everything that they're playing is kind of all interlinked, and the things that they're working on are interlinked. I think that the first version of that, the things that people are actually working on, are kind of interesting. They're very VR based, and as long as VR headsets, until VR headsets become super tiny, I don't think it's going to become super widespread. But I think that eventually, I already assumed that we would be at the point where you had glasses that were VR, and we're not even close to that yet. So whenever that happens, I think it'll be huge. But I think that the majority of it is just going to be, at first, people in VR headsets using things like the business applications, and then slowly maybe migrating that into video games and other things. I really struggle with the idea that there's going to be some giant Second Life type world or VR chat type world that everybody is going to want to engage in and stay in all the time, or that a large number of people will. Maybe once it's to the point where they can just jack right into your brain and you can't feel that you're wearing a headset anymore and everything seems more real than reality, that'll be like a big thing. I don't know, like the Matrix. But I think that short term, there's a lot of people super hyped up about it because there's a lot of money and investment around it. Facebook's a giant company, or Meta's a giant company that has billions of dollars just coming in constantly that they want to dump into it. And there are a lot of other places that do too. So I don't know what it's going to end up being, but my guess is it'll probably be a bunch of different applications and little like Facebooky type instances. So there'll be little ones like that pop up that'd be kind of like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And if there are these little virtual worlds that are popular, and they'll probably be all just VR based, they'll get bought up. I don't see how they're going to completely take over, but then again, like I wouldn't have seen how cell phones were going to take over in the 90s. Like that little cell phone I could text on, and I never would have imagined that was a thing that everybody would be using all the time. And doing video and all the other crazy stuff that happens now.
Yeah, good. So my last question is, in what ways gamification can improve learning? Last question.
Oh, okay. So I guess gamification really just, and for me, it improves learning because it makes it, by making it interesting. So it gives you, it makes it interesting, and it gives you some real world mapping of the solution to the problem. I find that a lot of the time, if you learn things kind of in theory when somebody's telling it to you, or you're just reading it in a book, it can be really difficult to see like how this thing relates to something in practice, like how this math problem or this math formula relates to figuring out where an object should move, or where you would place this, or how you would build this building. In a game situation, it's easy because you can kind of map it and see visually what's going on. Like you can say, here's this formula, we're working this thing out, and this is what it's actually going to do. You can see it visually represented. I mean, you don't necessarily need a game for it, but I think that when you make it into a game, then you can allow the player to tweak it, and then see how that changes things, and then start to really get a better grasp and understanding of it, instead of just a memorization of this formula means this curve. Changing this formula does these things to the curve. Yeah, just I think a deeper understanding, make it more interesting, and yeah, I think those are probably the two key things.
Okay. Yeah. Even I use a lot of apps for learning things like physics, maths, or by visualizing the concepts and all the things. So it's very
personally
helpful.
I open up Unity if I want to do like physics related things. I open it up and I start to build a little test project. I'm like, how does this formula actually work? Like, let me just demo this out and see it and visualize it as much as possible until I can understand it.
Then we'll transfer into C# code. Yeah.
I start to try to figure it out.
Yeah. So yeah, that's for the video.
Great.
Thank you for yeah. Thank